Pilot of Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. I'm here to ask you for your support. Finding honest Native-centered news is not easy, but with your support, we're able to provide accurate information about Standing Rock, Line 3, treaty violations, and COVID-19 in our Native communities. Please visit Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon and donate if you can. That's Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon. Pinigigi, and thank you for your support. Hey, this is Robert Pilot. The Minnesota State Fair is more than food on a stick. It's a chance to celebrate Native culture and voices. On August 25th, hear the Red Lake Singers and Emizaska Drum Group during Mental Health Awareness at Dan Patch Park. On August 27th, meet Native authors like Roxanne B2B Nokwe Gold and Stacy Lola Druyard, and visit the Common Table and learn how Indigenous foodways are shaping Minnesota's future. Get your State Fair tickets now at mnstatefair.org. Four Sisters Farmers Market is more than a place to shop for delicious organic food. It's a celebration of Indigenous culture, food sovereignty, and community. Now in its 11th season, the market offers healthy, affordable, culturally appropriate local foods every Thursday from 11 to 3. Located on the American Indian Cultural Corridor off Franklin Avenue, Four Sisters Farmers Market is a project of NACD. Every Thursday now through October, discover more about Four Sisters Farmers Market by visiting nacd.org.
After 20 years of service, the Metro Blue line is ready for essential improvements. A multi-year transformation is on the way, bringing a better, smoother Blue line experience. Renew the Blue will preserve and protect a critical piece of our infrastructure investment, helping it remain a safe, reliable, and affordable transit option for many years to come. Learn more about Renew the Blue at metrotransit.org/renew-the-blue. Metro Transit, Renew the Blue.
The city of Minneapolis is now on Native Roots Radio with Minneapolis AIR. AIR stands for American Indian Relations. Guest host Christine McDonald talks to people about important things affecting the city's Native communities. Minneapolis AIR dives into topics like public safety, public health, elections, and so much more. Tune in to Minneapolis AIR on Native Roots Radio from 5 to 6 p.m. on the second Wednesday of every month, right here on AM 950.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for partly cloudy skies tonight with a low around 66, Thursday partly cloudy with a high near 79, and Friday sunny with a high around 87. Head to Cafe Latte's Pizza and Wine Bar featuring a full menu of gourmet pizzas and more than 30 wines by the glass. It's casual, cozy, and seriously delicious. Off Victoria and Grand in St. Paul. Reserve or order now at cafelatte.com. That's cafelatte.com.
Portions of Native Roots Radio may be pre-recorded.
It's a good day to be Indigenous.
Get up, stand up.
They are going to become more brutal.
Because all the hippies are trying to be Indians anyway.
They're going to become more repressive because it's a matter of dollars and their illusionary concepts of power.
Hey, Victor.
We must live in balance with the earth.
And also with recent happenings at Wounded Knee.
I am awake. Welcome to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Wakanja Hade. Hey, Kadagi to all my friends and relatives in four directions. You are listening to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Robert Pilot. Hey, we discuss local, national, Native news and events, and as you know, Native issues are human issues, and human issues are Native issues. Hey, this episode is presented in partnership with the City of Minneapolis for Minneapolis AIR, American Indian Relations, who hosts a monthly conversation on the second Wednesday of the month regarding happenings that impact our Native communities in Minneapolis. We're grateful for the partnership to keep up to date on topics that can better support our largest urban Indian population in the country. I'll pass things over to Minneapolis AIR's American Indian Community Specialist and guest host, Christine McDonald. Welcome, Christine. Hoa.
Thank you, Robert. I'm so happy to be back again this Wednesday. Buju, Ogadaki, Gabaweek, Nindijnakas, Ajijak Nundundam. I'm Christine McDonald, the American Indian Community Specialist with the City of Minneapolis. And today we begin with a conversation about new civil rights protections in Minneapolis, talking about how it's unlawful to discriminate against someone for their housing status, justice impacted status, or height and weight. And joining us now to talk about that is a very special guest, Civil Rights Department Interim Director, Kaela McConnon Diarra. Hi, Kaela. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so let's just jump right in. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do as a director?
Absolutely. So yeah, as you said, I'm currently the interim director of the Civil Rights Department for the city of Minneapolis. And in that role, it's really my pleasure to lead a group of really dedicated professionals who work within the department, and they work on a variety of different civil rights related issues. So we have a group of folks that works particularly on civilian oversight of law enforcement. So they investigate potential misconduct by Minneapolis police officers. We have a group of folks that enforce our city's labor laws. So that's things like the city's minimum wage rate, as well as sick and safe time, which guarantees some amount of time off for folks who work in Minneapolis so that they can care for themselves and their families, and they investigate possible violations of those city ordinances. We have a group of folks that ensures equity in city contracting, making sure that our city dollars are going to the right folks and folks that reflect really the community here in Minneapolis. And then we do anti-discrimination work. So we enforce our Minneapolis civil rights ordinance, and that's what I am here to talk about today. And I'm very excited to do so.
Great, thank you. So tell me more about the anti-discrimination work and what does that mean?
Yeah, so we have our city's civil rights ordinance, and it's our duty in the Civil Rights Department to enforce that ordinance. We do that by receiving and investigating complaints of discrimination from folks that might be experiencing discrimination across the city of Minneapolis. So members of the public who feel like they're experiencing discrimination. And when I talk about discrimination, what I generally mean is negative treatment that's based on someone's protected class. And a protected class is something about you, about your identity that you cannot or should not be asked to change. So it's things like your race, your national origin, your gender, your sexual orientation potentially, and the like, your religion, your disability. There's many different potential examples. And what we do is take a look at people's experiences and assess whether there really was a violation of our civil rights ordinance. We have protections in a variety of different areas of life. So we can investigate discrimination that's happening like in an employment setting, maybe discrimination by an employer. We can investigate discrimination maybe by a landlord, and we can even investigate discrimination by the city itself, maybe in an interaction with like a housing inspector or other city employees that are out in community. If you believe that you've had a discriminatory interaction with that individual, that's something that you can come to us and make a complaint about, and that's something that we will investigate. Generally, we can investigate any sorts of concerns of discrimination as long as they happened within the city of Minneapolis and as long as they happened within the last year. So that's something to keep in mind. If you do have these experiences, it's good to come to us sooner rather than later, just to make sure that we are able to look into whatever you may have experienced and hopefully provide this service for you.
But it is like, as long as it's been within that 12-month time frame, somebody kind of ponders back and forth. Should I say something? Should I not say something? They have a little bit of time, and it's not too late if it's been a few months.
They do. And it also, just as long as some part of the discrimination happened within the last year. So if, for instance, maybe you've worked somewhere for a long time and maybe you feel like you've experienced a variety of discriminatory situations in your workplace, as long as something discriminatory or something you believe is discriminatory has happened within the last year, that's something that we can investigate. So even if it's been a long-standing problem, still please come to us, and that's still something that we can look into. Absolutely.
And what are the new civil rights protections, and who's going to benefit from them?
Yeah, so I'm really excited about this and really excited to talk about it on the radio show today, because we really want people to know about these new protections. I think the city of Minneapolis is really leading the way in really expanding our protections at a really important time where that does not necessarily seem like what's happening at the federal level. So we're really excited to still be doing positive things in the civil rights realm. So there's new civil rights ordinance amendments, so changes to our law that passed on August 1st, so just a couple of weeks ago, so they're very new. And there's 3 new protected classes that are now in our ordinance. So like I said, a protected class is generally something about your identity that you cannot or should not be asked to change. And there's a variety of protected classes that we've had in our ordinance for a long time, but now we're actually expanding those protected classes and including some new ones. So one of the first ones that comes to mind and that I think people should know about is the protections for people people based on their housing status. Now, this was kind of crafted with the specific intent of being able to address potential discrimination that folks are experiencing if they are experiencing unsheltered homelessness at any given time. So if there's potentially preconceived notions of what that means about a person and whether or not they would be a good tenant or a good employee, that should not be a factor that is being considered by like an employer or a landlord, and that could constitute discrimination under our ordinance right now. So that's one of the new protected classes. Another one is justice impact status. And when I say justice impact, what I'm referring to largely is criminal history. So record of arrest or conviction for a particular criminal offense. And so in that too, this is now a protected class. So if you are justice impacted or you do have a criminal history, you also shouldn't face discrimination based on that particular part of yourself and your history. I will say that there's some caveats around that. There's some exceptions. There are certain jobs where there are licensing requirements, that don't allow folks who have certain things in a criminal history to have that sort of job. That all still applies, but there shouldn't be, for instance, blanket statements by an employer that they don't hire anyone with any sort of criminal history, right? There's also protections in there that if like you have an arrest record, but you were never charged or convicted of an offense, that's not something that an employer or a landlord should even be considering, right? In whether or not you should get a job or, be eligible to rent a particular housing unit, or things like that. And then the third one that I'll highlight is height and weight. So this is where, again, we're talking about kind of these preconceived notions that folks might have about people based on things about their identity, right? So if an employer, for instance, looks at a person and thinks that someone can't do the job, maybe because of their height or weight, that's not going to be a legitimate reason to turn them away from a position. So now if the person truly can't do the job, that's of course a different consideration, but we shouldn't be making decisions based on these preconceived notions of what someone's appearance or body might mean about whether or not they could do a job, or whether they can access housing and a variety of different areas where that could be potentially problematic. So just to give maybe a little bit more kind of real world examples of the types of cases we might receive with these new protected classes are, we would be able to investigate, for instance, if a business denies service to someone that they perceive as experiencing unsheltered homelessness, that could constitute discrimination. It could also be, like I had said before, an employer that says, I don't hire anyone who has a criminal history. I don't care what it's about. That's also something that we would be able to investigate.
Beautiful.
Hey,
Thank
we'll
you.
be right back. You're listening to Minneapolis Air on Native Roots Radio. Hoa!
The city of Minneapolis is now on Native Roots Radio with Minneapolis Air. AIR stands for American Indian Relations. Guest host Christine McDonald talks to people about important things affecting the city's Native communities. Minneapolis Air dives into topics like public safety, public health, elections, and so much more. Tune in to Minneapolis Air on Native Roots Radio from 5 to 6 p.m. on the second Wednesday of every month, right here on AM 950.
After 20 years of service, the Metro Blue Line is ready for essential improvements. A multi-year transformation is on the way, bringing a better, smoother Blue Line experience. Renew the Blue will preserve and protect a critical piece of our infrastructure investment, helping it remain a safe, reliable, and affordable transit option for many years to come. Learn more about Renew the Blue at metrotransit.org/renew-the-blue. Metro Transit, Renew the Blue.
Minnesotans age 65 plus might qualify for Health Partners Minnesota Senior Health Options. The easy all-in-one plan includes personal support, coverage for medical, prescription drugs, and dental, plus many extra benefits. Eligibility information is available at healthpartners.com/oneplan. Health Partners is a health plan that contracts with both Medicare and the Minnesota Medical Assistance Medicaid program to provide benefits of both programs to enrollees. Enrollment in Health Partners depends on contract renewal.
Fair fun starts on Metro Transit. Instead of driving, park your car for free and take a stress-free, non-stop, air-conditioned ride straight to the Minnesota State Fair. You'll not only save on gas and parking costs by taking a State Fair Express bus, we'll drop you off and pick you up right outside the gates. Learn more at metrotransit.org/state fair. That's metrotransit.org/state fair.
Hi, this is Representative Sharice Davids from Kansas. I'm Ho Chunk, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio.
And we're back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and this is Robert Pilot. Hey, this episode is supported by the city of Minneapolis, Minneapolis Air, and we are back here with our guest host, Christine McDonald. Take it away. Ho!
McDonald, the American Indian Community Specialist with the city of Minneapolis. And today's show, we are speaking with the interim director for the Minneapolis Department of Civil Rights, Kaela McConnon Diarra. And before we went to break, we were talking about what are the new civil rights protections and who's benefiting from them. And I'm thinking we didn't get through all of what's new and what's happening.
Yeah, so we have even more new things to share. So we have those 3 new protected classes, which is housing status, justice impact status, and height and weight. And then in addition to those new protected classes, we have a variety of kind of bolstered or stronger protections that have been included in our ordinance as well. So one of them is that we have an expanded definition of race that includes hair texture and hairstyles, as well as physical features that can be tied to a particular race or associated with a particular race. This just allows us to investigate even more potential instances of discrimination that are in that kind of race-based discrimination realm. We also have increased and added protections for pregnant employees. So there now is going to be a requirement that folks who are employing people that are pregnant, that they need to be more flexible about the accommodation that they provide to those individuals. So providing things like allowing a pregnant person to have like a water bottle with them while they're working, to allow for, additional more frequent bathroom breaks, and the like, maybe using a stool if they traditionally stand a lot during their job, things like that. So that's a new set of protections that we're going to have in our ordinance as well. And then also there's a requirement that folks accommodate people's religious beliefs. So our ordinance has always prohibited discrimination based on religion. So for instance, you shouldn't get fired from a job, right, because you convert to a different religion and your employer somehow finds out about that. In addition to not allowing folks to discriminate on that basis, we're now requiring employers to work with their employees and figure out what reasonable accommodations need to happen to make sure that folks can, for instance, get prayer breaks if that's something that they need, that they're able to take time off potentially to go to religious services and things like that as well. So we're really excited about the whole package of new protections because they really provide much more avenues for folks to address wrongs that they might be experiencing, whether that's in the workplace, in housing situations with landlords, in interactions with city employees, or in other businesses. So we really want folks to come forward if they are having those experiences in the city of Minneapolis.
Mm-hmm. And again, anytime within the past year.
Right. Absolutely.
That's amazing. And what other kinds of anti-discrimination protections does Minneapolis enforce?
Yeah. So as I mentioned early on in the show, we have always protected many different protected classes. So things like race, discrimination based on race, on national origin, on religion, on disability, and the like. We have always been able to and continue to robustly enforce our civil rights ordinance for those protections as well. And so what we want folks to know is that they can come to us when they're having those experiences. So I've talked about how we investigate discrimination in employment, and we investigate discrimination in housing and public services. We also can investigate discrimination in educational institutions. So if someone's being maybe denied, access to an educational institution, so like not being allowed to participate, if someone's having discriminatory incidents or situations while they're actively going to school somewhere, that's also something that we can investigate. Any public accommodation, so any like business, restaurant, gym, any place that's available to people in general, members of the public in general, if you experience discrimination in those types of areas, that's something that we can investigate. And so we really want people to come forward when they have those experiences. We receive right around 300 complaints of discrimination a year. And then we take a look and make sure that it's something we can investigate. And then we do that. And when we investigate cases and when we come to positive outcomes in cases, we really can recover substantial and meaningful things for folks that have experienced discrimination. So some examples of kind of outcomes that we've seen in discrimination cases are we've seen back wages paid, right? So if someone was, for instance, fired from their job based on a discriminatory reason, so an example might be an employer finds out that someone is of a particular religion, they have some sort of animus or dislike of that religion, and then they terminate the employee. An outcome we might see there is paying that employee the wages they would have made if they had stayed employed at that employer, right? Because they never should have been terminated for a discriminatory reason. We also see things like reimbursement for out-of-pocket costs if someone, for instance, was removed from their housing for a discriminatory reason. A good example that we do unfortunately see from time to time is maybe somebody starts getting government assistance that's going to help them pay their rent, and they have a landlord that is not interested in renting to someone who uses government assistance to pay their rent, such as a Section 8 housing choice voucher or another sort of government assistance. That is considered discrimination in the city of Minneapolis. You can't turn someone away because of how they're going to pay their rent, whether it's, from their paycheck directly or from some sort of government assistance that they receive. So maybe if someone was, their housing was terminated, they were evicted, something like that on a discriminatory basis, and maybe they had to live in a hotel for a few weeks before they got another apartment somewhere else. That could be the type of thing that we could see repaid to them in the conclusion of our case, because this is out-of-pocket expenses that they should have never had to cover themselves. Another example is just monetary damages for emotional distress, right? The discrimination caused them emotional distress because obviously being discriminated against is an incredibly, stressful, problematic situation to experience, can really be traumatic for folks. So we also see monetary recoveries for stuff like that. We also, as the department, are very focused on making sure we see outcomes that are going to prevent discrimination from happening again in the future, as well as compensating the person that had that individual experience. So we're often looking for things like what policy changes can happen so that this sort of discrimination doesn't happen again in the future. And then we're also looking at training. We need people to be educated about what our civil rights ordinance provides and protects, and need to make sure that they know how to not violate that ordinance in the future.
So you had mentioned that as far as recovering some of the things that people may have experienced in it being like out-of-pocket expenses, and like if they had to transition from, they were forced out of their current apartment because they're now on Section 8. So I'm thinking about when you're looking for an apartment and you see people list accept Section 8, Section 8 welcome. So it doesn't really matter because nobody can discriminate against whether you have Section 8.
Absolutely. So thank you for highlighting that. You're absolutely right. So if you were to see anybody who's listening today, if you were to see an advertisement, even if you're not actively looking for housing, if you just happen to see an advertisement for a housing unit that says no Section 8 or something similar, that is absolutely something that we want you to report to the department. That is going to be a violation of our ordinance, and we absolutely will take action on that. We actually have, go ahead, Christy.
I was just going to ask, is there a difference when it's like a multi-unit complex or like a owner-occupied side-by-side or?
So that's a good question. What I would say, there are some exceptions for like an owner-occupied place. Like for instance, if you were renting a room in your house that you actively live in. But what I would say for listeners here today, don't even worry about the nuance. Make the complaint with us, and then we'll always look into that, right? And we'll assess, if there's a reasonable explanation as to why a certain situation occurred. Obviously, we'll look into that. But the vast, vast, vast majority of the time, you should not be seeing no Section 8 on any sort of advertisement in the city of Minneapolis. I'll add that we actually have investigative staff that sets time each week where they go and look for housing advertisements, and they're checking for that type of language, because we can issue what's called a director's charge, where we don't even have a complaint from the public, but we've identified something that's discriminatory that's occurring in the city, and then we can pursue that case independently.
Wow.
The department.
That's
as
all.
well.
Yeah. So to know it's being monitored.
Yep. Yeah. So it's really important to us. And that is something we see often enough, right? That it has been something that we've needed to monitor. And we've had a lot of success getting that taken down, and also educating landlords that they do have to accept Section 8. That's not a valid reason to turn someone away.
So what should you do if you think you've been discriminated against?
So we want to hear from you. We really do take this work seriously. And we do complaint-based enforcement in the Civil Rights Department, which means we need the complaint. We need to hear from members of the public in order for us to do our enforcement work. So it's really important that you contact us and you let us know. And we try to give you a lot of different avenues to do that, so that hopefully something fits what you're most comfortable with. You can visit our website, which is minneapolismn.gov/civil rights, and make an online complaint. You can also call 311 in the city of Minneapolis if you'd prefer to make a complaint over the phone. And you can walk into our offices during normal office hours, so 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. And we're located in Minneapolis City Hall in downtown Minneapolis, and it's room 239. So you can do that if you feel more comfortable making a complaint in person. And then once you do make that complaint, our intake staff will reach out, get more information from you, and then also help guide you through our investigative process.
That's awesome. So they can call 311, come to room 239 in City Hall. And then there was one online, right?
Yep, they can visit our website. And even if you just look up Minneapolis Civil Rights on Google, you will get to our website, and all of our complaint forms are right on our homepage.
This has been a lot of fantastic information. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, we'll be right back. You're listening to Minneapolis Air on Native Roots Radio. Hey, it's Robert Pilot from Native Roots Radio. Native culture is alive and thriving at the Minnesota State Fair. The Native Roots Trading Post is back at the West End Market, where you can support Indigenous artists and makers. And don't miss the Native Pride dancers performing on the Summit stage at the Bazaar August 31st and September 1st. From music and art to food and storytelling, Native culture is everywhere at the State Fair. Tickets are just $17 through August 20th at mnstatefair.org.
Hey, it's Patrick for Zero Res. Did you know that August is Pet Appreciation Month? Zero Res doesn't use harsh soaps or chemicals, so it's safe for all your furry friends. If you have a pet like I do, you know they'd like to leave little bits of themselves around the house, whether that's fur or dander or worse, and you need to call my cleaning heroes at Zero Res to help get your house back in shape. Carpets, tile, rugs, upholstery, hardwood, every surface in your home can be Zero Resified. So if it's been months since your last deep clean, it's time to give the pros at Zero Res a call. Right now, you can get your entire home Zero Resified from Minnesota's ultimate carpet cleaner. Get 3 rooms of carpet clean starting at just $124. Take 15% off pet odor treatments and $50 off an air duct cleaning when you book with Zero Res today. Call 952-ZERO-RES or go to ZeroResMinnesota.com and ask for the AM 950 special. Backward or forward spells the same. Zero Res.
Turn to Auto Technical with your vehicle donation. Even though Auto Technical is a small nonprofit, we have helped more families with transportation than any organization in Minnesota. Since '94, we have reconditioned donated vehicles so they have a higher tax benefit. Call Richard at 612-919-5526, 612-919-5526, or autotech.org.
Hi, I'm Peter Solak.
And I'm Adam Ostrowski.
We are here at Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces to talk about the joy of live fire cooking. Cooking over a live fire is the oldest and most basic form of cooking.
What's new is in the way a fire is handled and its heat is managed.
It's easier to experience and enjoy the smell and taste of food cooked over a live fire.
Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces sells and installs live fire grills, fire pits, and ovens. Let us help you experience the smell, the taste, the fun of cooking with fire.
Pizza was first made and is still best made in an open fire oven. The radiant and conductive heat of a live fire is unmatched for wood roasting and baking artisan breads too.
Come see the many ways you can cook over a live fire.
Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces has over 35 working wood and gas units on display at the corner of East Franklin and Riverside Avenue in Minneapolis. More information at woodlandstoves.com. Find the fire that works for you. Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces, out of the ordinary products and services since 1977. Discover a world of foods. Visit Shanghai International Wholesale Market, a spacious food warehouse open to the public with discounts for buying in bulk. Incredible selection of global and local foods, 500 different types of noodles, specialty items, and local foods you won't find anywhere else. Shanghai Wholesale Market, your local international food warehouse. Shanghai is just north of University Avenue off of Pryor.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for partly cloudy skies tonight with a low around 66, Thursday partly cloudy with a high near 79, and Friday sunny with a high around 87. Zero Res cleans carpet, tile, hardwood, rugs, upholstery, and air ducts using no harsh soaps or chemicals, and it's safe for pets. Right now, you can get 3 rooms Zero Resified for $124 plus $50 off your air duct cleaning. Call 952-ZERO-RES or visit ZeroResMinnesota.com.
Oh, this is Dallas Goldtooth, and you're listening to the Native Roots Radio. Hoka, hicha, wecha.
Welcome back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and this is Robert Pilot. Hey, this episode is supported by the City of Minneapolis, Minneapolis Air, American Indian Relations. And here's our guest host, Christine McDonald. Hoa!
Hey, welcome back. I'm Christine McDonald, American Indian Community Specialist with the City of Minneapolis. Next, we're joined by 2 guests from the state of Minnesota's Cannabis Expungement Board, Mark Haase and Kissy Coakley, to talk about how to remove cannabis offenses from your record. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having us on, Christine. As you said, we're both with the Cannabis Expungement Board for the state of Minnesota. I'm the Deputy Director and General Counsel.
Can you guys tell us a little bit about yourselves and what you do?
Sure. I'm the second in charge of the agency, and then as General Counsel, I manage our legal department and the process that we go through.
Okay. Kissy?
And I'm Kissy Coakley. I'm the Paralegal Supervisor, and I also do community engagement work as well.
Fun. So tell us more about what the Cannabis Expungement Board is.
Sure. When the Minnesota legislature legalized adult use cannabis in 2023, they also decided they wanted to go back in time to people who had been convicted of cannabis offenses in the past and allow those records to be expunged or sealed. There's 2 ways they did that. One is if somebody has a past cannabis misdemeanor, there's an automatic process for that, and those have already been processed and sealed through that automatic process. But the legislature decided for offenses that were a felony, they wanted to have, and they created a board, which is the Cannabis Expungement Board, to review those cases for certain criteria and decide if they should be expunged or not based on those criteria. And the board is comprised of 5 people that are determined based on the statute.
Thank you. Kissy, what does an expungement do for a person?
Yeah, so expungement actually seals past cases, past cannabis cases that you may have in your background. And so we would go through a background check and see if you have cannabis cases in your background, and then we would seal that information if it qualifies under the statute. And it actually helps remove barriers for people can get employment and housing, and also get qualified for working in different positions like PCA healthcare. There's many positions that people can't qualify for because of their criminal background, which that when they have cannabis in their background. So we're sealing those records through an expungement process.
Great, thank you. Mark, what kinds of past convictions can people have expunged?
So as I mentioned, if it was a past misdemeanor, that should be automatically expunged. There are some exceptions to that. If it's a multi-count case, it may not get sealed at the courts. We can talk about that if we have more time, or people have questions, they can contact us. As I mentioned, for cases that were felonies, somebody was convicted of or had a stay of adjudication for a felony, those may be eligible. The main criteria in the statute are that it can't have involved weapons or violence, and it has to, under current law, be less than a felony level offense. So that would be based on the weight or different circumstances of sales, for example, but under current law, it can't be felony level offense. It has to be below that under current law.
Okay. How is the Cannabis Expungement Board prioritizing the cases that they have?
Yeah, so the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension gave us a list of about 100,000 cases that might be eligible. Yes, it's a lot. It goes back 35 years. So we have to go through, eventually, the idea is that we go through all of those cases. The statute does not tell us how we have to prioritize those. What we are doing is we are starting with most recent years. And we are, initially we've been focusing almost exclusively on fifth-degree possession cases, but we're going to start adding some lower-level sales cases to that mix, again, starting with most recent years.
So if you've been given a caseload, but if an individual wants theirs done, they contact you and find out where it is within that prioritization, or they contact you and then it can be moved up, or how is that working?
Kissy, do you want to speak to that?
So if someone wants their records sealed earlier, they can contact the Cannabis Expungement Board by going to our website. They can go to the Minnesota.government.tv website, and then there's a form that they can fill out there. And once they fill out that form, it comes to us, and then the person who's doing the intake, I've been doing intake, so I would go through that information, get their information, and go through the process of looking up background, seeing if they qualify, and then we would send that over to the attorneys for our second review. I'll be part of doing the first review, and then the attorneys would do the second review. And so if anybody who wants to get their record expunged earlier, then I would encourage them to go to the website, fill out that information, because it really can change someone's life and with getting the record expunged. So I just would encourage people who want to do it earlier, who know they have cannabis in their background, to go ahead, contact us, fill out the form, and someone will contact them back and go through the process. And it just moves it up a little sooner.
And what is the website?
So it's the Minnesota.gov CEB.
Okay.
And there's a form there.
MN.gov. Right?
Yeah, the Minnesota.gov CEB.
Okay. And how does the board review eligible cases?
So
I'll take that one, Kissy. Kissy mentioned that we do an initial review. We have a process, and we are still hiring. Well, we don't have any open positions now. We're bringing on a number of people, paralegals and staff attorneys. They review the files for certain criteria. Then it gets a second review, and then we bring that to the board, and they have to vote on it under the statute. And we are, continuing to refine our process so that the board can review and act on a large number of these cases at any given month. The board is required to meet monthly, and they've been meeting monthly. So far, the most the board has acted on in 1 month is about 140, but we're hoping to get up to 200 and more pretty soon. Again, with the number of cases that we're talking about, we have to increase those numbers, but as we add more staff, we'll be able to do that. So once the board makes a determination, then we file a notice with the court, and the court issues issues an order. And, because this is an entirely new process for the state, we've had to get up and going. It's taken a while to get to the point of actually issuing orders. But the good news is that in the last month, the court has started issuing these orders, and we're filing more and more of the notices of determination. Our board has made determinations in almost 400 cases so far, but again, we need to increase those numbers.
We kind of just really jumped right into this, and you just brought up a good fact. Like this is all new. It's all new to the state. How long has the office been up and running? How many staff are there? What are the different roles in the office?
Sure. As I mentioned, the statute was passed in the summer of 2023. And there's a whole bunch of things that go into starting a new state agency, finding office space, developing position descriptions. The board started meeting almost immediately. And last December was when the board started making determinations, and that was after determining, kind of developing a process. But everything we've done so far is with sort of a skeleton crew. It's myself, 2 managing attorneys, 4 paralegal supervisors like Kissy, a couple of administrative staff, our director, a communications director. But we've recently brought on some staff attorneys. We'll have about 8 staff attorneys and 12 staff paralegals will be starting in September. So we should really see those numbers start to increase then. And, we're trying to do more and more of this type of public engagement so people know that they can contact us and be sort of advanced in the line to get their record considered sooner than it might otherwise.
Thank you. And then, do you need a lawyer to do the expungement? I think that was for Kissy.
I guess it depends on what type of case that you're getting expunged. So in our cases, the CEB cannabis cases, you don't need an attorney to do that. We're automatically going through those records once we receive them from the BCA. We look at the cases, and then, like Mark had stated, that the paralegals will be going through those cases and then send them over to the attorney. But if you're trying to do a general, like I would call it general or different kind of expungement, so say you have a charge other than cannabis cases, then some of those cases we do have the clean slate. I know that's a little different from what we're doing, but we have the clean slate. We have the pardons and other ways to do expungement. So, but our main focus is the cannabis one. And if you want other types of expungement, then some back then we used to do where you had needed attorneys for those cases. And I believe that you still may need attorney for some cases, but in our cases, the CEB, you don't need an attorney for that.
But is there a cost?
Well,
no, there's no cost. There's no cost for our process. Yeah. And what Kissy just talked about, the different types of expungements, that might be a good segue to talk about that a little bit. What do you think, Christine?
Yeah, maybe after the break. I don't know how much time we've got before we have to go into this break. Okay. But we do, we talked about if you needed a lawyer, if there was a cost, no. And then how are you letting community know? Like, I know I've asked about, we've got a job fair and a resource fair coming up that we would love to have you guys present at. How can community get a hold of you to have them at any of their locations or events?
Yeah, so what folks have been doing is reaching out, and they can reach out to me. I've been doing like some of the community engagement work, like I said. So we've been trying to partner with as many folks as we can. We have done a couple of community events in the community already at organizations like Emerge. We've contacted Ujama, Department of Public Safety. We'll be partnering with them. Also with Keith Ellison office, we're going to be doing some partnership with them. So if there's other organizations out there who would like to partner with us and have us host a table, we would love to do that. I know we're going to be doing a hosting event at Violence Free in September. And so
what is that? How do they get in touch with you?
So here's my contact information. It's Kissy, KISSY.Coakley @state.mn.us. So you can send that email directly to me, or you can go through the cannabis website, the mn.gov CEB, and then maybe just put the information in there and say that you're trying to reach someone around the community engagement or partnership.
All right, thank you.
We'll be right back. You're listening to Minneapolis Air on Native Roots Radio. Ho!
Thank you.
Hey, it's Robert Pilot from Native Roots Radio. Native culture is alive and thriving at the Minnesota State Fair. The Native Roots Trading Post is back at the West End Market, where you can support Indigenous artists and makers. And don't miss the Native Pride dancers performing on the Summit stage at the Bazaar August 31st and September 1st. From music and art to food and storytelling, Native culture is everywhere at the State Fair. Tickets are just $17 through August 20th at mnstatefair.org.
After 20 years of service, the Metro Blue Line is ready for essential improvements. A multi-year transformation is on the way, bringing a better, smoother Blue Line experience. Renew the Blue will preserve and protect a critical piece of our infrastructure investment, helping it remain a safe, reliable, and affordable transit option for many years to come. Learn more about Renew the Blue at metrotransit.org/renew-the-blue. Metro Transit, Renew the Blue.
Four Sisters Farmers Market is more than a place to shop for delicious organic food. It's a celebration of Indigenous culture, food sovereignty, and community. Now in its 11th season, the market offers healthy, affordable, culturally appropriate local foods every Thursday from 11 to 3. Located on the American Indian Cultural Corridor off Franklin Avenue, Four Sisters Farmers Market is a project of NAGD. Every Thursday now through October, discover more about Four Sisters Farmers Market by visiting nagd.org.
The city of Minneapolis is now on Native Roots Radio with Minneapolis Air. AIR stands for American Indian Relations. Guest host Christine McDonald talks to people about important things affecting the city's Native communities. Minneapolis Air dives into topics like public safety, public health, elections, and so much more. Tune in to Minneapolis Air on Native Roots Radio from 5 to 6 p.m. on the second Wednesday of every month, right here on AM 950.
Anine, I'm Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan, and you are listening to Native Roots Radio.
Welcome back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and this is Robert Pilot. Hey, this episode is supported by the City of Minneapolis with Minneapolis Air, American Indian Relations. And here's our guest host, Christine McDonald. Ho!
McDonald, American Indian Community Specialist with the City of Minneapolis. And we are joined this evening by members from the Cannabis Expungement Board Office. Is that what it is? And we have Mark Haase, who is, Deputy Director? Is that what you said? And then Kissy Coakley, who is a paralegal with the CEB. We've been talking about what the Expungement Board is doing, how they're going about prioritizing expungements for folks. We've learned that they have a roster of cases that they're looking at, as well as people can call in and request to have their records sealed before they might get to their record on that pile of expungement work. So thank you for being with us tonight. We were going to go into a little bit about what some of the other work that Bill has brought up is, and if you could repeat what they were. I think one was like clean slate, and I can't remember what the other one was.
Sure, I'll give a little summary of what's changed recently, and a lot has changed in the area of what people can do about their criminal records, especially in 2023. The legislature, created this process for past cannabis crimes. They also created what they're calling clean slate, which is the automatic expungement of certain offenses after a waiting period. They also changed the pardon process. So I think the main takeaway here for people is that if you have any criminal record that's been holding you back, you may want to talk to an attorney if you can, or look into what's changed. If it's a cannabis offense of any kind, feel free to contact us. We'll definitely let you know what the options are for that. We can also give you some ideas about where to go to maybe get help with some other records, again, our website is mn.gov/CEB. You go there, you can fill out a contact form and we'll contact you, or you can just email us at ceb@state.mn.us. Also, we represent the Cannabis Expungement Board, so we can't help you and advocate for your expungement, but we can provide you with information. If you'd like to speak to an attorney or go to a clinic, a really good resource for different of those types of things that are offered is the state law library. So if you do a internet search, Minnesota State Law Library expungements, they have a list of different things that are happening there. There's clinics that happen at Sabathany, Volunteers Lawyers Network does some clinics. The Attorney General's office has a website called stealmyrecord.org, where you can submit information and they might be able to help you. So there's just a lot of resources out there. Again, if people have been held back by a record, we know that happens a lot, even after somebody has done everything they've been asked to do.
Can I ask to get some definitions or some more information? Like, what does an expungement mean? What does sealing a record mean? What is a pardon? How do you know when you should seek which?
A sealing or an expungement is the sealing of the record at the courts, at the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, at the law enforcement agency. So it should make it so that when you apply for employment or housing, it doesn't show up. Now, it's not a perfect remedy. Sometimes it can show up, and those are some things we can talk through with people, but it should make it so it doesn't show up on those applications. It also provides some protections. For example, there's a Minnesota state law that if a record's been expunged, the employer can't be held liable for hiring somebody with that record. Not that they typically are, but there's that protection for employers. And then a pardon is literally the state forgiving somebody. So you can say that you've been pardoned, and once the record's been pardoned, it automatically gets sealed. And one reason that a pardon is important to know about is because expungement, the different expungement laws, there's a lot of offenses it doesn't cover. Any violent felony is not generally expungible in Minnesota. But if it's been long enough, you can go before the Board of Pardons and get it pardoned and then sealed. And like I said, all those laws have changed recently, so people, probably heard different things in the past. If they have this issue, they should talk to an attorney or go to one of these clinics or contact us.
So if you would there be reasons why you wouldn't get an expungement or a pardon? And if you have been denied, does that mean you can never apply for that or request that again?
Usually for either expungement or pardon, you can reapply. I think there's a waiting period to reapply for a pardon. There are different reasons. We gave the example for a past felony conviction. If it involved violence or a weapon, it might not be eligible, or if it's still a felony under current law, it wouldn't be eligible. For pardon, it's really more, what have you done since? Have you had a clean criminal record? Are you remorseful for what you did? What's your need for a pardon? So it's a little different for every type of what we call in law remedy, but there's a lot of things available now that weren't in the past.
And so for the expungements, they can go directly to you. For like pardons, there's other agencies that they would work with.
Yeah, they could, especially if they have if somebody has a cannabis record, they can contact us and we'll let them know what can be done with that. That's our main role, but we'll also give them this kind of information about what their options might be for other records.
Okay. And then is there anything else that you can think of that people should know about as far as getting a cannabis expungement, the clean slate, anything else you might have mentioned this evening?
I can't think of anything. Can you, Kissy?
I would just encourage people to go ahead and apply for the expungement piece through the Cannabis Board. If it's something they feel like they need to do sooner than later, because I know for some people it can make a difference on housing, employment, and just being able to, for me, it's like feeling empowered, right? Like, with getting your record expunged, it brings some form of self-esteem, because sometimes when you have that record, it does deplete you and feeling like, helpless. So to me, it's a way of bringing hope to a person. So I would encourage people who feel stuck and like they just can't get past getting employment and housing, or just feeling afraid to even apply for a job. I would just say, to reach out, especially if it's a cannabis charge, to reach out to the cannabis board and say, hey, I would like to do this sooner because I need to find employment, I need to find housing, and I'm just feeling hopeless. I think it's very beneficial in that way. So
I think I have one last quick question, and it's more about like if somebody has had a conviction like 10 years ago, how do you know, like, so you just move the expungement forward without contacting them, without having any like contact information. So these individuals could it will just automatically happen for them, right? At some point, if they get it down on that roster?
Yes, it could happen in one of two ways. The Cannabis Expungement Board will get to that and would expunge it. There's also under clean slate, there's overlap. So some of those felony drug offenses will be automatically sealed after a waiting period under the automatic expungement statute. So yeah, people may just, look at their court record and be like, oh, it's gone now. I didn't even do anything. And that's one thing that's nice about it. But people should check into it. And, kind of along the lines of what Kissy was saying, information is power. If you're not sure, ask us. There's a lot of organizations, attorneys out there that want to help people with this. So just go to that state law library website, like I mentioned, and look up expungement and see where you can find a place to get some information.
Thank you so much. It has been such great information from you guys today. Minnesota, mn.gov/CEB for more information.
Great. Thanks for having us on.
Thanks for having us.
Right on. Thanks for tuning in to this month's episode of Minneapolis Air, American Indian Relations on Native Roots Radio.
After 20 years of service, the Metro Blue Line is ready for essential.